Media types. Where and how shall I place my ad? In this section, we talk media types, what medium alternatives there are. So where can we place our ad promotions so that we can achieve our marketing objectives through advertising media? As you can see, this is just a small sampling of how many kinds of billboards we can use. So here are those steps. We figured out an audience and our objectives. We have a sense of the core idea or message we want audiences to take away as well. Now we see to the form. What particular tool will we use? So which is the quote, best advertising medium? Well, there's no simple answer to that question. Choosing an advertising medium depends on the marketer matching the market with media in a way useful to all. So, first of all, what are the organization's promotion objectives? What outcomes do we seek? We may want to remind consumers, but only when they are in a particular location or time. So we may want push notifications on mobile for that versus, say, a paper flyer. Next, what are the target market characteristics? So what are they like? Who are we doing this? So what magazines will they look at? When do they tend to browse their social media feed? So lots of questions on things like behavior. What are the funds available for our advertising campaign? What can we actually spend? And then, of course, the nature of the media itself. Who is reached? With what frequency? With what impact? And at what cost? So, for example, email lets people pretty easily click a button to subscribe to a newsletter. For paper mail, they may need to scan a QR code or type it in themselves. So, some steps to success. Most major media do research to develop audience profiles to deliver better value to potential advertisers. And profiles often include, of course, segmenting dimensions beyond just demographics. So, for example, not all seniors use email or newspapers in the same way. Likewise, your target market might be made up of seniors who are heavily involved with a certain medium. So marketers should do their best to select media that attract a high percentage of that desired target market, because you still have to pay for the whole audience the media delivers. So in this example, they anticipate the target audience who use mass transit or just traveling by likely know there shouldn't be a big gaping hole here. It speaks to the nature of the media, bus stops. The message works on both levels toward two customer groups. It works toward those who know who Thor is and the power of his hammer, because they'll recognize its iconic hammer and the name and are rewarded for their familiarity. It also works for those who are unfamiliar with Thor, because they may get curious about the nature of this character and now have a sense of one of his most iconic props. So in sum, similar to the last slide from the first promotional slide deck, advertising, like all other promotions, are best when targeted and part of the strategy. So this exhibit taken from the textbook compares the characteristics of several types of media, primarily the classic forms. You can imagine that there are many more digital versions. And so don't try to necessarily memorize this table. Instead, practice how you would approach each medium as to how it will be used by your target market, which therefore lets you evaluate whether it would be a good fit for achieving the outcomes you want. So namely, impressions and reach for your market of interest. What is the performance? What will it help to achieve for your market of interest? And of course, the cost to make it happen. So a few highlights, since you can think through the basic pros and cons to each of these. So television, many more ways for audiences to connect and access TV programs. We see the rise of what's called connected TVs or smart TVs, which means TV that connects to the internet and so can access TV content, streaming content, and more. This means much more what's called addressable TV, where automated, that is programmatic tools can select TV ads based on the audience segments. This applies to both more traditional linear TV and what's called over-the-top services, so separate streaming media services like Netflix or Max, as they're calling it. Next, radio. So this includes both conventional broadcast, AM and FM, as well as online digital radio to consider. Radio is generally wider reach, lower cost, and easier to get highly segmented audiences, but a big con is that it has short exposure and is often done in multitasking conditions. There's a huge range how much a listener is paying attention at any one moment. Radio is one where you could really need to consider the way customers are consuming that programming, whether by car, online, at home, that is, while at work. Next, magazines. These center on particular content and a potentially highly specific and motivated audience. So you can imagine many are in inspiration mode when they're looking through it. The table entry tends to convey the printed form, but we can imagine how marketers anticipate reading experience and design over multiple kinds of touch points now. So there's more digital formats and more interactivity baked in. Same goes with newspapers, where print and digital forms are in a rebalancing act. So as you can imagine, printed newspaper ad reach and spending is expected to fall, but digital forms will grow. Lots more interactivity potential as well, like we see with magazines. Directories, what the book insists on calling yellow pages. This a continued strength of directories is providing a curated list, doing the assembling and sorting for people. So think Yelp. Think a mini contractor business directory that you get as a mailer, or a posted business directory for an area, like many nice ones at the local chambers of commerce. Internet, well, they include that, but basically video, sound, interactivity, very good at having a specific location in user history. They list it as its own category, but keep in mind you'll want to break down exactly what kinds of internet ads or platforms you actually want. So are you on mobile or any device? Are you integrated into a social media platform? Is it a general web page banner ad, or is it search engine listings? So something else, algorithms can better predict and recommend content of all sorts, promotion included in ways we do want. Outdoor, or what's often called out-of-home advertising. Think billboards, transit advertising like bus rest stops, posters at airports or subway stations, wraparounds on buses or trains or planes. This is kiosks, skywriting, and more. So these are increasingly digital and interactive. These are the ones you see where the 3D animal charges out or it points to a real life airplane flying over. Lots of opportunities. As with all of these, I've got extra little examples and notes in the notes section. Direct mail. So this is covered in the last slide deck and the last chapter. As we discussed, lots of opportunities for personalization and interactivity for both the print and digital formats. So the key thing about ads is that they're any type of paid placement. That means they can take all sorts of forms with even more opportunities through digital and online forms. So guiding factors for digital especially is to really think about what's going on with your customer and what other content or situational factors you're coming in with. So really get into that fit. What forms of advertising will help bring them value versus just being intrusive? So consider display ads, which are ads along the tops, middle, sides, and bottoms of the screen while browsing a page. Frequently, it's from a third party from the actual page operator. They can have text, images, sounds, and hyperlinks. And you can time when they pop up or how they change as users are navigating a page or even interact with the ad, perhaps mouse over or touch. So for these two, this Pandora ad, it uses a display ad that matches the size and shape of the music album paired with an audio ad. It can account for your current geographic location. However, I've had a student mention that their location setting meant they still received Alaskan ads even when currently in California. Meanwhile, this one is an interactive banner ad game. Note the cute little game graphic and the horrifying looking skull to drive curiosity and likely conveying the mood and tone of the show. This one is an example of contextual targeting or contextual advertising. It uses the environment in which it is placed. So what's actually on your screen? This usually draws on keywords from the page. So this one you often find at the ends of the page, and this example is from a theme parks and news site webpage called My Sage. The blog news post discussed changes to the Cove Bar restaurant and the then named California Screaming Coaster. It therefore pulled some of the words and pulled an ad for what they called the Inn at the Cove in California, and more news on the roller coaster itself, as well as internal links. You'll notice some of them are also based on my past user history where they have info on marketing. Another major strategy form is retargeting or remarketing ads. These draw on your browsing history. In this example, Amazon is reminding me I searched for Stomp Rockets. Not perfect, of course, since the system didn't check I had already purchased it on that very site. And mobile ads especially are, in general, designed for mobile devices, so they anticipate that you'll have particular dimensions and functions. So say narrower and often maybe something like one-tap touch. Really think hard about the needs in the moment for the customer when you're creating those. Social media ads, lots of social media platforms and lots of types of ads. These two are very classic display kinds for YouTube and Tumblr. Some will have opportunities for hashtags, sponsored stories, things like suggested or promoted, and other ways they're slipped into the platform's proverbial ecosystem. Search engine marketing. This is paying for placement in search engine results. This can be something more general like Google, but it can also be something like how Amazon search results include a list of sponsored products. So really hone in on the different keywords you might have by customer segment and where they are on the customer journey. So a past student team did hair care products, but often focused on themselves as a high quality hair straighteners. Here are a few examples from YouTube to consider how much you have to consider when and how your potential customer is browsing and watching videos. Consider for each their own strengths and weaknesses depending on your promotional objectives. So, what are the outcomes desired for a target market? So, you can consider things like how much do you want to interrupt? Are you skippable? Will you play pre roll, mid roll, or post roll? Are you playing off another large ad series? What do you want your customers to ultimately do? What kinds of call to actions may help with that? And is this the ad, or rather, and is this ad the place for it? So remember, ads of all sorts can be all part of the customer journey. It just depends how you make it relevant to the customer. Are you letting them know tickets for a seasonal event are coming? Perhaps a reminder ad they don't mind too much because it's good music? You'll have to gauge that. Here's an example of how strategies are often mixed and matched on any one platform. A past example from Facebook. First, here's a suggested post from Facebook. I have family members that likely follow and like posts from Fox. I didn't have TV at the time. Here's a likely retargeting campaign where my browser history includes sci-fi shows. It's likely knows I look up information on TV shows exclusive to streaming services as well. Display ad on the side, again sponsored, promotes Total Wine. It's likely anticipating needs based on my social network and psychographics. Upon reading the copy, Total Wine and More now delivers. It's also based on my location history. I've been near Total Wine before, and my search history, remarketing and retargeting, because at the time I had students with projects on food and alcohol delivery. So quite a good guess to promote Total Wine and More's new service. Every term, it's fun to see which of your companies are especially aggressive, in fact. So I start doing research to better understand all your projects. So in sum, lots of advertising opportunities. Keep in mind how advertisements compared with all sorts of other ads, content, and other situational factors. Here are a few more examples of how many kinds of media we have. You can imagine how easily overloaded customers already are, which makes it harder to break through. So make sure your ad has value to them. So for example, retail kiosks provide in-house ads, help customers search inventory, and may let them virtually sample or try on said product. Subway tunnels can anticipate and play moving ads by anticipating that you're zooming by and potentially are bored. Tons of video games include ads directly in the game, things like textbooks, and not just for marketing either. You may face ethical questions based on the audience or choice customers have to opt out of these ads, such as how, for a math textbook that uses a candy brand toward very young kids, they don't have a choice. So in sum, there are many new spaces that marketers can use. You just need to be on the lookout. And here's an example of actually augmented reality. Augmented reality is where your smartphone displays an overlay on the real world through your screen, such as your phone displaying your real life space on the screen, but there's now more stuff on it, like little signs pointing out important facts, options to place digital objects in the space, or other added sounds, visual, and sensory data. So nonprofits often use emotional appeals, in fact, to create interest. And they found augmented reality is really good at directing emotional energy for the audience toward action. You get better IDA progression, and the audience member can feel more like they're part of the story. They feel like a hero, and that their contributions are more tangible. So in this one, CrowdRise, the towers grew as people donated with an achievement game of sorts where the videos were unlocked as a tower and donations rose. The British National Health Service has a billboard changed to where the screen would show you donating blood and filling a bag, and the billboard would show the patient making a recovery. This was meant to increase blood donations in the UK, and it worked. So lots of videos out there that explore how not just what message to send, but how to send it via your medium to better provide customer value. Likewise, remember your own needs. Consider what metrics to track. Just recently, eNursery was able to figure out when they selected a new time to send their email newsletter, the program began to use a different IP address, which meant the emails were now going to spam for a large swath of the list. So remember this goal. Good ad placement provides value. So remember, it all comes down to that customer. These two examples show how media placement is adjusted for the customer. So Cinna Roasted makes high-quality cinnamon roasted nuts. It serves two major segments, those looking for customizable gifts, say organizations and final consumers, and those in a location looking for a snack, say shoppers at malls or attendees at different fairs and festivals. The first set of pictures in this slide is their showroom located in the downtown part of a local city. Notice that they're not just about nuts, there are other products offered. And you can consider, how might that brand extension have worked? Why have apples? Why have the ability to see the factory? Notice the different types of displays and information used. What do they anticipate about their customers? Meanwhile, the second set of pictures in this slide are for the booths. They have kettles that cook the nuts right there in the booths. There's big signs here. There are bowls with samples. So notice the different types of displays and information used. What do they anticipate about these customers? And so with that, remember, to wrap up media placement, the big goal is good ad placement provides value.